الناس حبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله قلبك كن سموحا لخصمك ألقى خصمك أحبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله قلبك واحتفل بالمودة إنما
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum, and welcome to this special Ramadan edition of the Sulaimaan Ravat show. Now, during the month of Ramadan on the program, contrary to what we usually do during the month of Ramadan, where we focus more on the so-called spiritual topics, and I use the word or the phrase so-called because any topic can be spiritual, depends on how you approach it and from which angle you discuss it. But this year, during Ramadan on the program, we are touching on some sensitive issues, a few hard-hitting, real-life issues. And the topic that we have for tonight's program, let me tell you, some of you may cringe once I tell you what we're going to talk about. And you may feel that, hey, what's wrong with these Moulanas? In Ramadan, they're talking all these heavy stuff. But these are real-life issues, as I said, and these things are prevalent. And in Ramadan, when you have a greater viewership and you have greater interest in terms of people being more spiritually inclined and more religiously focused, then all the more reason to take the opportunity to discuss some of the issues that impact on our spirituality. Because the brutal reality is this, that we are very spiritual during Ramadan, but then our condition after Ramadan is something else altogether. And Ramadan needs to be that opportunity when we don't only perform extra salah and read extra Quran and give extra charity, but it also has to be that month when we do serious introspection in terms of the wrongs that have become prevalent in our lives individually and collectively, and how to rectify those wrongs and remedy those wrongs and eradicate those wrongs from our lives. So our intention here is not to be sensational. Our intention here is not to stir a kind of hype. Our intention here is to discuss very sensitive issues, but from a mature, frank and robust perspective, so that we have a greater realization of the prevalence of these issues, the different dynamics related to these issues, and most importantly, then how to approach them collectively as well as individually. Right, so what's the topic of discussion for the program this evening? Pornography. Pornography. In short, they say porn, but I don't know if it would be somewhat improper or inappropriate for me to use the abbreviated version, because it kind of has a negative connotation to it anyway. But khair, pornography, or if you want to say porn in short, so be it, is something which, whether we like it or not, has become very easily accessible. Nowadays, even if your kid just goes onto the computer, there's pop-ups all over the show. If it's not hard porn, then it's definitely soft porn, and we'll talk more about that. It's a growing reality. It's not what it was 20 or 30 years ago, and it has invaded many homes, it has intruded in many marriages, and it has overwhelmed, and it has got hold of many good Muslims, both male and female. Right, our guests in studio this evening, they both have the same name, but differing surnames. To my right, not that I'm giving preference to my surname, but we have Moulana Ravat. Moulana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And how are you keeping, Moulana?
Alhamdulillah. And Moulana Osman, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan for inviting us to the program.
MashaAllah. So we've got two freshly graduated students and alims, and very dynamic, mashallah, and we look forward to a good program. So let's get stuck into it, or let's get straight into it, rather, let me put it that way. From an Islamic perspective, why would we say that pornography is haram, and how would we define pornography? Because today we live in a time and we live in an age where one person may feel what I'm watching is not really problematic. They, in their own mindset, may not feel that this is pornography.
Yes, most importantly, Moulana, I think the first thing that should pass through anyone's mind before doing anything is that, is this correct for me to do Islamically, according to my religion, according to the principles which I believe, is this correct for me to do? So obviously, when it comes to the Islamic perspective on pornography, the first thing that will come to mind is regarding the aspect of nudity. Now, nudity is something that we all know is haram. there's many proofs in Quran and Hadith, and we find from the Hadith Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saying that one should not look at someone's aura, and at the same time someone else shouldn't show off their aura. So at both ends and both sides, you find that the person showing it off and the person viewing, both of them are in the wrong and both of them are in haram. So that would be regarding the aspect of nudity itself. Then obviously you look at many sins have the ability to be the foundation to lead towards other sins, and pornography, as we can discuss later on in the program, has that ability to lead you towards many other sins. Namely, you can name one is masturbation, homosexuality, different types of other sins. So fundamentally these two would be the two core principles of why we would say it is haram. And then morally you could also say that there's a lot of immodesty and immoral behavior which takes place on a pornography video or a picture. Then that obviously also adds on to the proofs of why it would be haram.
Would you like to add on to that, Moulana?
I think I would more head over on to say that currently we live in a world where you have a war going on between arrested woman in niqab versus applauded woman in nothing. We live in the sick world where the dignity of a woman is turned completely into dust, and this has been made somewhat a global phenomenon in terms of having days dedicated, such days like Cleavage Day and No Bra Day, where the dignity of a woman is completely annihilated. And this is something which people are looking at as something good and something applaudable. Nowadays, it's sad to say, but you can't even stand in line to pay for your groceries, you can't walk in the street, you can't drive on the highway without having nudity and sex just thrown into your face. So having understood the kind of context that we live in, now we can begin to explore this topic of pornography and the different types it has, and move on to the harms, etc.
Yeah, I think it's a key point in that because nudity has become so prevalent that we have become desensitized, and all the more reason then to have a discussion, because there may be some viewers, they're thinking, okay, why do we need to talk about pornography? We know it's haram, it's a no-brainer, it's pretty straightforward and clear-cut, but we've become rather desensitized to seeing semi-naked women, not only on the beach, but as you say, even in a mall.
Yeah, and I think that's where we actually branch off to different types of pornography. Many people know pornography to just be what is known as a sex video, or a couple, sometimes man and woman, sometimes man and man, sometimes woman and woman. It's sometimes a whole host of people that are engaging in sexual relations. Many people confine pornography to just this particular sex video. But when you actually look at it, you have your minor versions and your major versions. You have your mild version of pornography, you have your extreme version of pornography, which would be all these different variations of sexual relations, and it being videoed, obviously. When you look at a minor form of pornography, it was exactly what Moulana had said in the introduction, things like softcore pornography, just a picture of a naked woman, and like you say, walking in the street, and perhaps a very alluring woman walking past you, or even a man who is absolutely striking, and he's giving off that sexual feed, and people are starting to take that, and that is where the lead comes to, obviously, the major forms of pornography.
Now, in terms of prevalence, generally amongst Muslims and non-Muslims, how prevalent is it when it comes to viewing of pornography, and then more specifically within the Muslim community?
Yeah, to add on to the question that you asked, Moulana Yusuf, and that would be the need of why we should be speaking about it, and that links to this question, is that have you understood how vast this industry has grown, and to what extent has it grown? It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, as they would say, billions of dollars and millions of dollars have been invested in it. Researchers say that in America, approximately every 39 minutes, one new porn video is being released, every 39 minutes. And then when you go deeper into the stats as to who are the viewers who are watching it, they say that the average age group is between 12 and 18 years. So that's your primary viewership is from that age category, the teenagers. And with that, they say that when does a youngster or a teenager actually get exposed to porn? Most researchers say at around the age of 10 or 11. The age of 10 or 11. And then if you look more locally, according to researchers, South Africa is among the top 20 viewers, among the top 20 viewers of pornography worldwide. Recently,
Even though our data is so much more expensive.
even though the data is so much more expensive. So we're climbing up there, and we have to know what are the reasons, and we have to understand how porn has evolved, how it has grown, and how easily accessible it has become. And then also, if you look at it, that in terms of teenagers, we know the harms and how many of them are involved in it. Then we have, obviously, among the grown-ups and the seniors, a man who's married is still also addicted to porn, is watching pornography. And then you have those who have the common debate, is it only among men? Is it something that only men are interested in? And here again, researchers are saying that it's no more the case. Previously, it was something that was more interested to men. But nowadays, they're finding that research is showing that 30% of women are the viewers of porn. So it might seem little, 70 to 30 might seem little, but previously it was not 30, it could have been around 10%. So in a period of maybe around 10 to 15 years, it has grown, almost triple the amount, 3 times.
All right, so we've spoken here about why, from an Islamic perspective, it is problematic, and we've spoken about prevalence. Why do people turn to watching pornography? What interests them? What drives them? What motivates them?
You know how they always say curiosity killed the cat? So many a time people just want to see what it's about. And I feel that that is one of the major starting points. Perhaps a youngster, and based on the research and the stats that Moulana Yusuf has actually just given, I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't safely say that a person who is just about to get married, maybe he's just entering around 20, that he is only going to be exposed to it for the first time, that he wants to now be curious to see what is he going to do in his marriage, because as the stats show, perhaps he has already seen that video. Definitely peer pressure has to be allocated here, whereby the friends and the company that you keep, maybe they already are watching it, and you know, you're going to school, a youngster is going to school, and everyone is just talking about it. Hey, did you see this video? You got to download this one. Have you seen this supermodel? And a whole host of things that youngsters would obviously speak about. And obviously, we come to why do people turn to it? Because it's there. That is unfortunately, but it is unfortunate, but that is a hard reality, that pornography, like Moulana said, is so easily accessible by the click of a button, by a mere pop-up coming in onto the screen. Hey, what is this about? Let me just have a look at it. And one thing leads to another. Before you know it, you're actually addicted to porn.
Sticking on the same topic of what drives a person, what motivates a person, curiosity is obviously there, as Moulana has explained. But if a person's married 10, 15, 20 years, what's there to be curious about? Somebody could ask. In that you've already experienced it in real life. Why do married men, or married women for that matter, still turn to watching pornography?
Yes, it could depend on the instance. Either if a man is about to get married and now he wants to start watching because maybe he feels like he wants to learn. But I wouldn't generally say, speaking from assumption, that the person who's already married and hasn't watched it, I wouldn't assume him to be starting to watch it. Unless one possibility could be that unless maybe he finds his sex life boring, or he doesn't find it interesting, so he's trying to spice it up, as we would say. So maybe he's looking for a different avenue and he thinks this is where I can get ideas from. But generally, a married man, I would say, if he is watching porn, it will be an addiction that it comes from before his marriage, something that he had and he brought it with him into the marriage.
Now, how easily can it become addictive?
When researchers speak about the addiction of porn, they say that it's very different to that of drug addiction. In that drug addiction, when a person is addicted to drugs, the main thing is, how can I get my bag at the end of the day? And all they crave for is more. So if he's smoking marijuana, then how can I get more marijuana? If he's already addicted to heroin, how can I get myself to more heroin? How can I get that heroin to me easier? And he just wants more. When you look at a porn addict, he won't necessarily look for what is he won't necessarily look for more. Rather, he tends to look for different, something more exciting, in his mind, obviously. And you would see it so common nowadays, and this would beg you'd beg to ask a question, that if a person, and
so he's
we
looking
see
to explore, he's looking for some sort of adventure,
something like that. And when you look at, for example, any famous celebrity, any sports athlete, whoever it may be, he or she may be married to a really gorgeous woman, a really appealing man, and then when you look few years down the line, you see the paparazzi, they're on the case of the couple that, no, you know what, the husband is now he's cheated on his bombshell of a wife. And the wife has now cheated on the husband. Why would you want to do that if you already had what is somewhat perfect in your mind? That is where now the research shows that because he saw something different. He saw something in another woman that wasn't in his gorgeous wife, or she saw something in another man, something different. So that is actually where the addiction really stems from.
Basically, it makes the grass look green on the other side.
Something like that.
Is there any form of satisfaction? I mean, as Muslims, from a spiritual point of view, we know that anything which is haram will not bring you complete satisfaction, right? That's just the system of Allah. But from an apparent kind of perspective, is there even superficial satisfaction when it comes to watching pornography?
Yes, I think there would be. That's the reason a person would be addicted to it, because if he's not getting satisfied in some way or the other, he's actually then not fulfilling any of his objectives. So if he is addicted to it, it would mean that something is being satisfied, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing. Obviously, in this case, being the wrong, but something is getting satisfied. And here, in the context which we will look, it will be his desires. That it's a build-up of things which linked up to the other issue is why would a person want to watch porn? Porn is not the beginning, it's the end result of many other things. So a person might be watching a movie, or he might view an image where a woman is semi-naked. So his curiosity and his mind will drive him that, okay, I've seen half of a body, why can't I see the full body? So that desire will build up on that. Thereafter, perhaps he once seen a naked image of a lady, he would then think to himself that why can't I see two individuals having intimacy or having a sexual relation? So it's a build-up of things, and once he gets stuck into porn itself, what would then happen is that because it's such a vast scope and such a huge arena, that he'll be stuck into it, because today I'll be watching one thing, tomorrow I'll be watching another thing, and every day, as you're saying, the addiction is different. It's not like a drug, so it's not like, you know, I'm just stuck on one thing and I'm going to carry on this. So it will be a build-up of a host of things where he will now get stuck into it, and day by day he will be learning new things, and that will make him feel like he's been satisfied. But ultimately, we know there's no real satisfaction in that.
I think that's a key point. It's almost like you perceive some sort of satisfaction, but in reality it creates a greater craving, which leads to more dissatisfaction. Time for us to take a break. When we come back, inshallah, we continue the discussion. Welcome back. So this evening we're talking about pornography. We spoke prior to the break about the Islamic perspective on why pornography is haram. We also spoke about the degree of prevalence, especially in this age of technology and greater accessibility. And we spoke about some of the motivating factors. Why would people resort to watching pornography? How it becomes addictive, and in reality doesn't satisfy. It only intensifies the craving, resulting in more dissatisfaction. Now, in this segment, we focus on the harms. In general, Moulana Yusuf, what would you say are some of the harms of watching pornography?
So harms we could basically split up into two. You've got your physical harms and obviously your psychological harms. Physical harms, the obvious one would whereby watching pornography, if it would ultimately lead to the act of masturbation, then definitely a person will or could encounter a thing called erectile dysfunction, and this can prove to be quite detrimental if he gets married or when he gets married, in that he would not obviously be able to satisfy his partner, etc. And apart from just the erectile dysfunction that could come about from masturbation, research shows that even if it doesn't lead to masturbation, just watching pornography alone, that itself has a negative effect on a person's sex life as well. And another obviously a physical harm would be visual impairment. Nowadays, by looking at a screen for far too long, definitely opticians would bail me out on this here, that you would obviously be harming your eyesight in numerous ways. Then when you look at psychological harms, a very famous psychologist by the name of Professor Gary Brooks, he noted these psychological harms, and he called it the centerfold syndrome. He actually wrote an entire book called The Centerfold Syndrome. And what he actually does, he sums up the psychological harms in these few points. Firstly, he talks about voyeurism. Now, what is voyeurism? Voyeurism is that pornography teaches its viewers to focus more on people and less on the relationship. Obviously with the partner or whoever the partner may be. Secondly, you have what is called objectification, where people are, women, children, men, they are completely judged based on the size and the shape of their body. Then you have something called validation, where a person, after he's been living in an idealistic world, where the woman and the man are of perfect build, they have the perfect body, so they themselves only start to feel masculine and feel feminine when they are around beautiful people. So we know that when a person gets married, he's getting married to the bombshell of his life. After a few years, when age starts catching up, when when a person's wife gives birth, and all of these physical changes happens to a person's body, that bombshell just turns into a shell. It's true.
Yeah.
And the last 2 points that he brings about is that of trophyism, where a person's partner is just shown off to others as being a trophy of and as something valued, but only in a specific aspect. Whereas you're speaking about a person with feelings, you're speaking about a person that has a heart and that has emotion attached to him or her. And then the last one would obviously be the fear of intimacy, where a person who was so very much involved in this world of pornography, when it comes to the real thing, and you have that picture in your mind, and whatever is in front of you at that moment isn't appealing enough, or it's not what you have already built yourself up for, that will obviously lead to the fear of intimacy.
Now, one is the impact and the consequences and the harms of pornography in general. But then we spoke earlier on that you've got the youngsters, you've got the teenagers, you've got the non-married people who watch, but then there are also married people who watch. What would be the harms of watching pornography on a married man and a married woman?
I think the crux of understanding the harms of pornography is actually understood in marriage itself. That when a youngster is watching pornography, then he doesn't seem to realize the harms at that moment. So even you take the physical harms, as is mentioned, it's something that he will realize in his marriage, where he, for example, he has a problem where he cannot satisfy his wife adequately. But in terms of the couple itself, if you find either of the spouses, for example, in this case, say we take the male, the husband, if he is addicted to porn and he's still watching porn, and his wife comes to find out about it, the first thing I think she would feel is there's been a break in trust. That when she married him, she gave herself over to him. Now we know there's so much emotion behind a woman and in marriage, and especially the fact that a woman takes so long to become comfortable to actually share her body and her privacy in terms of her private areas with you. It's something that's part of haya and it's part of her modesty. So imagine in the mind of a woman, she's taken such a bold step, something so brave enough to say that, I become comfortable to be naked in front of another man. I've handed myself over. I basically trusted him with this. And now he's broken the trust. He's now broken the trust which I have given over to him, that my body should be the only body that he looks at. And we know, like in a general instance, if you're walking down the street and your wife catches you looking at the face of another female, you can know that night it's hell at home. So if that's the reaction of a woman if you just look at someone's face, can you imagine what she would feel if she knew that you actually view the entire body of another lady? And that I feel is it's something extremely detrimental to the emotion of a wife in terms of her trust.
I suppose it also creates a lot of suspicion in terms of if my husband is watching pornography or if my wife is watching pornography. Now there's this lurking thought that do I match up? Even if everything in the bedroom seems to be hunky-dory, but you'll be thinking, okay, do I meet the standards that he is or she is watching on that particular video clip, and what if I'm not? So it creates a lot of unnecessary kind of suspicion and tension.
Yes, it does. It creates a sort of a comparison in the mind of the spouse. And although we are focusing more on the female here as the victim, But generally, it can happen on the other side of the coin, where a man might feel that he feels intimidated that his wife watches porn. But in a general instance, you will find that the lady is more particular when it comes to these aspects. So you'll find your wife will ask you, am I looking fat? Is my nose too big? Is this wrong with me? So this is a general instinct of how a woman should feel in terms of her sensitivity. So on a general basis, she is so sensitive, and she's so worried about her image and the way she looks. So now if she knows that you have been explored not to one but thousands of other women, and how does she stand in front of you feeling comfortable that, you know what,
so it impacts on the self-esteem.
The self-esteem of the wife, that is my husband actually happy or satisfied when I'm standing in front of him? Am I appealing to him? Do I satisfy his needs? And we know even in intimacy, you find between the two spouses, you'll find a wife taking extra caution and extra initiative when it comes to the beautification of the body in the bedroom. I'm not saying it's correct for men not to do anything, but it's something a woman would take. She'll dress up, she'll put makeup, and all of these aspects will now affect her, because now she's lost the motivation. Anything that she could have thought that would have motivated her to feel comfortable and feel happy, she will lose it totally.
How real is it? I mean, one is we're talking about the harms of watching pornography, but in terms of what you're actually watching, to what extent is it real, authentic?
Yes, as you would hear as often that they would say pornography is, it's staged. It's there to make you understand that it's enjoyable, it's pleasurable. And I came across a YouTube clip where a recovering porn addict speaks. And he says that, there's certain things that I found which you might not know, or you might have realized but didn't take the cognizance of it. And he said that, understand, one thing is that the objective of pornography is the actual penetration in sexual intimacy. They don't focus on any other form of intimacy. So you would find generally, and this is sensitive information I'm sharing, but it's important because it's something that he realized. And he says that, you'll never find a man with his hands moving around. They'll never show you something where the two individuals involved are touching.
Aspect.
Yeah, the foreplay, the afterplay, what we would speak about, you won't find it, because why? It would disrupt the camera view. And that's one aspect. The other aspect, he says, is that the positions and the things that they make the woman do will be so uncomfortable that you cannot understand it to be pleasurable. But because she's been paid, you have to understand it's entertainment. It's an industry. So whatever they're doing, even though it seems pleasurable to you, even though it seems like it's amazing, that does not mean that the person doing it is feeling that. They say most porn stars actually end up being suicidal. Most of them cope with the stress and the anxiety and the emotion behind it by taking drugs. So that are facts that show you that actually it's not real. Well, most of the time, you can't say all of the time, but most of the time. And when it is, it doesn't mean that it's enjoyable. They mean that real satisfaction. It could also mean that, that person might be going through a lot of pain at that time. Whatever that woman might be put under, but because of the fact that she's getting paid for it, that will now make her act in a way where it makes you think, and it programs your mind in a way that for the rest of your life you are now going to think that this is something which is pleasurable and this is how I'm going to get enjoyment.
And then you have twisted demands in the bedroom.
Yes, you'll find a lady coming to an alim and saying, it's just weird what he asked me to do. And sometimes we also too hasty. We say, we need to spice up things. Maybe you're from the old school of thought. But sometimes you actually go into it, you find that it's really demanding on the wife, and it's something that she can't cope with.
Now, in terms of if somebody were to say, okay, but I want to spice up things in my marriage, where do I learn about it? There may be books, like books that talk about the topic in a non-sensational, in a non-degrading kind of way, purely focusing on the subject matter. But it's all theoretical. I need to get a bit of an indication as to what's happening. So you hear sometimes, for example, when scholars are doing marital counseling, and the one spouse will say, but you know what, I caught my spouse watching pornography. And the counter argument to me, I know it's wrong. I know Islamically it's not supposed to be, viewed at all. But my intention was noble. I'm just trying to learn a few tricks here and there to spice up my marriage. How would we respond to that kind of thinking?
Well, obviously, if he's going to be watching pornography and this is his intention behind it, we'll tell him that he has a noble intention, but he's taken a dark road. So he's got a very good destination in mind. However, the vehicle he's using is completely wrong. Why? When you're watching that video, when any person is watching that porn video, then that is the pleasure and that is the entertainment, that is the enjoyment that the participants are taking, they are participating in that enjoyment. That is their enjoyment. That is what their idea, and that is where their fun comes, and that is where their fun ends. That is definitely not where your fun should begin. Why? Because the only way your fun can begin is when you actually start experiencing it for yourself. And yes, a person may argue that you know what, you need if in order to become a master in football, you needed to watch a whole lot of football games, you needed to know the tricks of the trade, you needed to see how this soccer player did the dribble, how that one did the tap in. All of that is on its place. When it comes to you doing it, I can guarantee you one thing: you're not going to be dribbling like Ronaldo the first in your first soccer game. So when it comes to that first night of marriage, you are not going to be performing the way that particular star or that particular actor did, and definitely it wouldn't happen maybe in the first week or the first month. But my notion that I want to put forward, and my point that I want to drive, is why does your enjoyment have to be based on what he is finding pleasure in? Your enjoyment starts at your experience when you start speaking to your spouse, when you start exploring the things that your spouse likes. Perhaps whatever you're watching in that video, when you bring it, or when you wish to take it home and you take it to the bedroom, the wife or the husband stands up and says, "Whoa, this is not what I signed up for. I didn't know you had all of these tricks under your sleeve." So you have to, it's an experience, and it is a vehicle that you have got the license for when you sign the marriage certificate and you said nikah to her.
Yeah, I think it's a key point that it's not a competition. You don't have to meet anybody else's standards. There are no benchmarks when it comes to intimacy. It's about, the whole fun is in exploring together and working through it and coming to a particular point and then saying, right, okay, now we want to try different things. And that's the whole fun of it, that what works for you as husband and wife, and experimenting around that. And as long as you find a general degree of satisfaction in life, you're not going to get ultimate satisfaction in anything, whether it be business or whether it be pleasure or whether it be a hobby or whether it be anything else. So yeah, is there anything else that you would like to add on in terms of the harms of viewing pornography?
Yes, it will create an expectation which you're going to seem to realize later on that it's not the reality. And a proof for this would be that you find most men who have been addicted to porn prior to marriage actually carry on watching it after marriage. And the reason for that could be is that what he thought it was going to be, it never ended up being like that. And the reality is, if he didn't change, his wife didn't adapt to his demands, he now became bored with it, or he just done it for the sake of doing it, but his desire wasn't still fulfilled, his satisfaction wasn't there. So you'll still find him in his privacy or in the bathroom or toilet, wherever he is, watching these types of videos. It doesn't make sense logically, because if it was used to teach you and to train you, then one is you learn how to eat the chocolate, but when you eat the chocolate, you're not going to keep on learning for the rest of your life. So why is it such that the man before his marriage, he's watching it, and thereafter he still wants to watch it? I mean, experiencing the thing yourself, does it make more sense for me to see someone else eating a chocolate and I'm getting happy, or does it makes more sense for me to eat it myself and for me to enjoy it myself? So this could be a possibility that, you know, that's in the back of someone's mind, where he thinks that, you know, it's going to help me. But definitely it's something that you have to explore for yourself, and different strokes for different folks. For different folks, and inshallah, with the help of Allah and many other things, it will sustain itself.
Time again for a break. When we come back, we continue the discussion.